Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about data agglomeration, which agglomeration is kind of an odd word. Many people have not heard of the word agglomeration, so I'm going to go into that quite a bit in my talk. I do have a lot to live up to. I did do, I believe it was a very large number of hand-drawn slides last year. Sadly, I did not have the time to draw all of these slides by hand this year. Maybe next year. So first I'm going to talk about a little bit of history. This is James Watt. He developed a steam engine that was vastly more efficient than Thomas Newcomb's steam engine. Vastly more efficient in its usage of coal. And prior to that, there was another person by the name of Savory who had created the first steam engine that was used for pumping out mines. So you'd have the mine, you would begin mining for whatever it was, ore or coal, doesn't matter. These mines would fill up with water, and the challenge was always how could you get the water out? And trying to do that with buckets or something else is not practical or easy. So the idea of making a machine that could pump the water out of these mines was very attractive and was believed to be something that would be incredibly valuable. And when Savory came out with his design, the belief was that it was going to be an incredible advantage to England. And he was actually given a patent that was extended to 21 years because of the believed promise of this engine. Unfortunately, it wasn't incredibly effective. It wasn't very effective at all. Newcomer came along. He created a more efficient engine. It burned coal, it used steam, and the steam would end up creating, what was a switching between a vacuum based on expansion and compression. As this happened, it was found that all of a sudden the usage of coal was going up tremendously because people wanted to pump the mines. And so Watt looked at this and he believed that he could do a much better job. And so he designed a superior steam engine that would be able to pump out these mines much more efficiently. And there was a concern about the amount of coal that was being gone through at the time, and the fear was that there was going to be a coal shortage. And so when Watt introduced this new engine that was twice as efficient, the belief was, wow, okay, we don't have to worry anymore because now we have this incredibly efficient system, and so we won't need to worry about a coal shortage. Well, Jevons noticed something interesting. Jevons is an economist at the time, and he's looking at what's happening, and he said, there's a problem with this. And the problem is, because of the improvement in efficiency, we're actually going to end up consuming even more coal. And even today, government and many people generally think that if you have an efficiency improvement, that it's going to mean that whatever it is going to last longer, or that you're going to get more out of it. And when you improve the efficiency, several things can happen. If you continue to just leverage the same output, but you get an increase in efficiency, then yes, it would be true. You would be able to go much further with the same fuel. But if you can go much further with the same fuel, and if the amount of fuel consumed is less, there's actually a great likelihood that you're going to do more. It's going to spur all sorts of new possibilities, new capabilities. And this is where the paradox comes in. So what happens is you go and you start to consume, and you see here's the cost of fuel. You have in the first phase, you have 100, that's the cost. And if you look, you can travel a distance of, say, 10 kilometers, 10 miles, or whatever. So then you're able to gain an efficiency, a 20% efficiency, and it drops to 80. Well, all of a sudden, people are traveling a distance of 14. So they're consuming 40% more, but the improvement in efficiency was only 20%. So you're actually consuming more even though the efficiency went up because of the new possibilities that are created, because of the new potential industries or the new businesses that can happen, or the ability to apply this technology in a new way, and that spurs greater consumption. So if you think about that, that's an environmental effect as well. So this, by the way, is Manchester. It's really fuzzy because of all sorts of resolution problems, but you can see all of the coal plants and such. This is a new modern turbo generator generating power. Again, more efficiency gains, and we end up consuming more. We continue to consume more power globally, and we keep adding more devices and things, and then we find efficiencies of how we can run on lower power. But as we do that, we also find cheaper ways to make those devices, so we make more of them. So now we have even more devices, which is really where the Internet of Things is leading. So why does that matter to data? Well, IoT sensors are data generators. And so the more of them we have, the more data we're generating. So we're generating more and more data. It's going to increase at an exponential rate. There's no reason I can see why we would want to reduce the amount of data being created by these things. And it's to our advantage to have more data because we can change that data into information that's usable for action. So I'm going to talk about agglomeration now. I'm sure you've all been wondering when I was going to get to that. The easiest way to think about agglomeration is the idea of having an urban area versus a rural area. A rural area does not have agglomeration occurring with people. Cities do. City centers are the first and foremost way to look at an agglomerative effect. You have a grouping of things that are beneficial to one another, and so more people move in. That creates new opportunities for other businesses, for other people to move in and take advantage and leverage this new economy that's growing. And agglomeration is that effect of things being brought together because of this fortuitous cycle. So there are a lot of side effects or a lot of other things that happen with agglomeration, but at its core, the first real agglomeration that we recognize is cities. So when you talk to economists and things, and the terms that are used are all rooted in this concept of creating these economies or ecosystems around a specific industry or a specific thing. And if it's not clear in the next couple slides, it will be. So this is a diffused pattern. So this would be if you had a group of workers that were spread out over many towns and things, but specialized in a specific ecosystem. Let's say, for example, it was building furniture or something like that, and you had one person that was able to do one component or was able to create one piece of furniture. Let's say they were able to create chairs, but the person that made parts of the table was elsewhere. All of these would have to move these parts around between these places, and each skill set would be in a specific circle. So they would be very spread out. It's not very efficient. It can work, and it did work for a long time, but it's not efficient. What's more efficient is if you had all the people with all the parts that were building, say, the chairs and tables in one place, and the people that assembled them in another, and you were able to get far greater efficiencies by doing that. And then you have people that would want to sell those and do all sorts of other things with them. So you gain efficiencies because of the agglomeration. So if you've ever been to a furniture store, you'll notice that they have all of these things that have been put into the furniture store. But what's a frequent thing is that furniture stores end up having lots of other stores around them that complement them. There might be one store that sells one type of furniture and another that sells another type of furniture. Or there might be one that sells parts or does furniture repair or does upholstery or all sorts of different things that have to do with furniture. That's the agglomerative effect of these things coming together. This effect is also seen in other places. Another place it's seen is with automobiles, especially here and in the US. In the US, you'll see stretches of miles in some cases of automobile dealerships that are all next to one another, one after another, after another, after another. And you would think, why does that make sense? These companies compete with one another. Why would they want to be next to each other in this way? Well, it turns out that not only might you lose a customer to the person next door, but you might gain a customer. And someone that's going to that area and is going to spend the time there is very likely looking to buy an automobile. But there's some other side benefits. The people that are selling these automobiles don't just stay at one place forever. They usually move. Well, where are they likely to move? They're likely to move to one of the other places that's in that same area that's selling automobiles. If that's the case, they're likely to live closer to that area. If you look at the people repairing the cars, they're going to live in that area. If they're likely to move, it's going to be from one to the other. So you've ended up with this ecosystem or this economy because of agglomeration. So we can look at sensors in the world of IoT, and you end up with some interesting effects, not only physical effects of trying to have things come together based on quite a few things. Physical location, so things will be assembled into a single device, or they'll be spread out in a specific geography or something else, but there's a purpose behind that. And the data that they create also needs to be brought together. So in some cases, it's important, like if you look at this, these are all weather collection stations. And if you look, they're spread out, but if you look at the cities, they seem to have more clusters. Like if you look here, right, they're more clustered there. That's an agglomerative effect of the density of people, the people desiring to have that information, and the effects. However, it's not as valuable if I just pick this one station that's collecting weather data and sending it back to the Met. It's not that valuable if I just had that one weather station. I wouldn't get very much value out of that. I would know the weather for that location, but I wouldn't have any insight into a weather pattern or into anything else. I would simply have what's occurring at that time. And if you look, there are also stretches where there is no collection happening. So you see these chunks that are just empty. And that's because there aren't people there and there's nothing stationed there compared density-wise compared to here or up here. And there are some negatives to agglomeration. There's some negative effects, and this is one of them, is you end up with these holes in things. And the sensors themselves, if you don't know where they're located and it was simply sending you the information, but you didn't know that it was located here, it wouldn't exactly be valuable without that context. You'd know that somewhere that bit of weather, that barometric pressure, that wind speed, that wind direction is happening, but you'd have no idea where. So it would be slightly useful in that you would know somewhere that's happening, but it wouldn't be as valuable as knowing the location. Knowing the combined locations is where things get more interesting. So if we're pumping that data into a single database somewhere in a data center or in a broom closet or something else, you're not going to get a lot of value out of it. And in some cases, people have closed systems that are doing something like this today. And they're losing out on the effects of agglomeration. Yes, they're collecting, they may be getting some degree of insight, but they're not getting the level of insight or the level of value that they could be otherwise. So you can think of it as data being siloed. I like this because it's probably one of the most interesting places on Earth. This is on the island of Luzon in the Philippines. So This over here is the actual island, and you see this tall lake. This is tall lake here, surrounding this island. So this is an island inside of an island. Inside of this island is a lake, and inside of that lake is another island called Vulcan Point. It's kind of Inception in real life. You have an island within an island within an island. So my point is, you don't want to have your data on an island. You're not going to get the benefits of agglomeration. You're not going to get the benefits that you could otherwise. And as we open data up, we get more value. So you can think of trying to link your data together. And you'll notice this is eerily similar to another picture I showed you earlier. Or you can cluster your data together. You can even use algorithms to cluster data because you're trying to get value out of doing the clustering. So in some ways, we can do agglomeration through algorithmic, but not always. So you can have diffusion, and in some cases, diffusion is good. And I'm getting tight on time, so I'm going to try and explain. Diffusion can be good in an agglomerated state if you have other industries or other things that have agglomerated here. So we were talking earlier about making chairs and other things. But let's say someone found a really good method of making really strong forms of wood for legs of tables. And someone else was doing sporting equipment, and they decided to make cricket bats. And this person leaves and goes to make cricket bats, and they take that new method of making the stronger table legs and apply it to cricket bats. You end up with this diffusion of knowledge and information between these areas. And that's where an incredible amount of value and discovery can be had, is by having those things occur. But you can't have those things occur unless you have that transfer of information or even the ability for that to happen. So if you send the data up into a cloud or something else, you have an application or service that's trying to talk to this data. The more data and the more sources and the more devices that you have access to, the greater the chances you have of these effects of bringing the data together and benefiting from agglomeration. Agglomeration is also the cause for the term that I don't think anybody thought I would mention, but I'll mention, is data gravity. The agglomerative effects of having an ecosystem in a cloud and having all of this data there encourages other things to go there, just the way it would encourage people in a city to go to that city to find work, to buy things, to all of those things are forces that would attract you there. The same thing happens in clouds. And the same thing happens with IoT data. If I'm able to bring together all those disparate devices, and I'm able to bring that data together and I'm able to control that data, I get greater value out of it. So that's really where the value's hiding. The question is, who's exploiting or who's leveraging this value? And I'm going to wrap my talk up with this. It's interesting, these are credit reference or credit bureaus. There are about 5 different names globally for these companies. What's fascinating is they are an oligopoly of information that control if you're allowed to get credit or not. They have control over that entire ecosystem. They collect the data. They have proprietary algorithms that are applied that none of us have access to, and they decide if you're going to get credit. They make a great deal of money off of this, and they have their own ecosystem because of it. And then you have things that are close to monopolies, like we have the weather company in the US. They agglomerate all of the data across all sorts of different weather data sources, not just the US National Weather Service, but all of the different sources of weather data. They combine all of that data together, and they have a near monopoly on weather data because of that. And they can provide the most accurate forecasts, and they can provide all of these new services because of that. So they're able to get even more value out of it. And their customers get more value out of it when they combine that data with their own data to solve business problems. This is something that is incredibly valuable, and this is where IoT will really shine, is when we outfit all of these things with data generators and we combine this data together. Thank you.